Hey guys, Matt here. So right now is the season where a ton of new phones are being announced, but there's also a ton of current gen phones that are already out there. One of them is the Nexus 6. This is a phone that gives you the stock Google experience and some pretty good specs, and leaves the question, is the Nexus 6 still worth it? Let's take a look. So the big appeal in the past with the Nexus line is that you get the stock Google experience, which means the latest version of Android and consistent updates from Google. Another reason is that you would have a great performing phone, but at a relatively cheap price point. But with the Nexus 6, it's a bit different. You still get the stock Google experience, but this time the phone costs around the same as all the other flagship phones out there. So for the money, is this Nexus a good option? First and foremost, this is a huge phone. The screen comes in at 6 inches and is a Super AMOLED 2K display, so it's super sharp and has plenty of screen real estate for anything you want to do. But it's really big. Comparing to the iPhone 6 Plus, which is another huge phone, it's a bit wider and much thicker, so when using it, you pretty much have to give it your full attention. The screen quality is good, it's super sharp and has insane contrast thanks to the AMOLED screen, but the colors are pretty warm and pretty inaccurate. But once you get used to the screen, it really does look pretty good. This phone also has front-facing speakers, which is a trend HTC started, and while they get quite loud, aren't quite as good as boom sound speakers, but it's appreciated that they're on the front. The front bezels are pretty small, which makes the huge screen a bit more manageable. What's interesting here is that they are uneven, but when you have the on-screen buttons there, it actually evens them out because of the AMOLED display, which makes it look like it's part of the bezel. It's actually a pretty neat trick. The only issue with that is that Android still doesn't have spurious touch rejection, so because the bezels are so small, if your finger hits something accidentally, which it probably will, you will accidentally do things you weren't expecting, but this is really a problem across all Android devices. The overall build of the phone is pretty good. It has a metal band around the sides and a plastic back. On the top is a headphone jack and the SIM tray, and on the right side is a power button and volume rocker, and on the bottom is the micro USB port. Around back is the 13 megapixel camera. With previous Nexus devices, the camera has always been a big weak point. Here it's much better than the past cameras, but it still isn't all that great compared to a lot of the other phones out there. The pictures are relatively sharp, but the colors are a bit off and just not that saturated, and the low light performance is really lacking. On the video side, it records 4K video, which looks good, but again, it has some of the same issues as with photos. On the inside, the Nexus 6 is running a Snapdragon 805 processor with 3GB of RAM and an Adreno 420 GPU. This powers Android Lollipop, which runs well, but isn't as flawless as you might expect from Google's flagship. It runs fine for the most part, but sometimes it hiccups or just takes a second to load, and this is probably due to the screen. But the performance is good overall, and thanks to being a Nexus, you will get the latest updates, so you will always have the best software to support that hardware. The battery life is another place where this massive screen causes issues. The battery is 3,220 mAh, which sounds big, but for the size I found it drain relatively quickly. Luckily, there is a turbocharger included, so you can charge your phone really quickly. Just 15 minutes of charge can give you up to 6 hours of battery life, so if you do run out, you can charge it pretty quickly. So is the Nexus 6 still a worthy competitor? Well, yes, but for what you are getting and the price you're getting it for, there's really only two reasons you should consider this phone. The first is because of the screen size. If you're tired of those measly 5-inch phones and want to go all out, this is definitely a phone to look at. But more importantly, if you want a phone that is running the latest version of Android, this is the only place to look. If those two things aren't all that important to you, then it's hard to recommend the Nexus 6 over a lot of the competition. If it was $300 like Nexuses of the past, it would be a no-brainer, but that's just not the case here. But it's still a good phone, so if you want one, you shouldn't feel bad about getting one. So that is my take on the Nexus 6. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel and to see when I upload new videos. Again, my name is Matt, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya!